I want to tell you guys about the time that I moved to New York City and why I quickly left thereafter. Now, the story isn't going to be just about that. I am going to tell that story, but there's going to be sort of a deeper meaning and purpose behind why I'm talking about this. It's going to revolve around the topic of authenticity and being your authentic self, or finding your authentic self and being your authentic self. Now, I always wanted to live in New York. Ever since I was young, I grew up primarily in New Jersey, like an hour or two away from the city, and my parents would always take me there. I had family there. I just really loved the diversity of it. I loved how big it was and how crazy and the madness of it and just the whole thing. I think I just felt like I was a big fish in a small pond where I grew up, and I was sick of the sort of closed-minded mentality. And I just always felt like for me to really, become myself, quote unquote, I had to move to somewhere like New York. And when I turned 24, I used to literally write papers about it and shit. That's how much I really wanted to live there. So when I turned 24, I finally had this opportunity. Around this time, I was going through some very, very dark issues. I was struggling with a lot of mental health problems, and anxiety and depression and addiction, a number of different things like that. And I was still living in my hometown. I was a little bit behind, like all of my peers that were graduating college, and I changed majors and took some time off and stuff like that. So I was still working on my bachelor's degree. I was working in a restaurant. I was just using drugs every day, just in a really, really bad spot. Finally, I woke up and I was like, I have to get out of this. I have to get away from this toxic environment. I have to get away from these people. I have to get out of here. And why I probably haven't left already, why I hadn't ever moved to New York, was probably due to fear. I probably just was too afraid to get out of my comfort zone. So anyway, 24 years old, living in my hometown, working a restaurant job, using drugs, whatever. Finally make the decision that I need to get out of here. Coincidentally, around that same time, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew I had to. So coincidentally, around that same time, my dad who had just been living in the South for 10 years, had just told me, he's like, hey, I'm actually going to be moving back up to the Northeast. I'm going to be moving to New York. You should come stay with me. And I was like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity for me to get away from everything, for me to, I'd be living with a family member, so it wouldn't be as intimidating. I was like, this is literally perfect. And I think I felt like the reason I really wanted to move to New York was because that was where I was going to find my tribe and my people, and I was going to really be able to find myself there, and really establish myself. I would say that that's the main reason that people move to big cities or move anywhere really. So I did. I moved in with him to his 1-bedroom apartment. I was sleeping on the couch. Not an ideal situation, but it seemed like a step in the right direction. So I get to New York. I have nothing. I don't have a job lined up. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. I didn't know what to do. I just knew I needed to get a job. I needed to make some money quick. So I go get a job in this organic, hippie restaurant. And I was like, this is kind of perfect because I'll probably meet a lot of the people who are like me, a lot of, creative. I guess I sort of always like the creative musician artist types, right? And I thought that that's what I would meet there because so the thing about New York is that it's really fucking fake. Obviously there's a lot of real estate agents and, Wall Street people and just people who are chasing after wealth and other shit like that. Obviously those people are going to be very fake. And I knew that. Everybody knows that about New York. But New York is very diverse, so you have all different types of people. So I was thinking if I met more of creative types who were like me, that would be more of who I would gel with. And that would help me to kind of find myself, find my authentic self, because that's what I was lacking with. That's what I was lacking. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was. I was all over the place at that time, which most people who are 24 probably are. So I start working at this restaurant. Was kind of disappointed. Didn't really click with anybody or connect with anyone, to be honest. And it did have all the people working there were those types, those creative types. They were trying to be actors and musicians and things like that. But even them, they were pretty inauthentic themselves. I felt like just like the Wall Street and the real estate people, they were also trying to fit this mold of what they think they should be and trying to act in a certain way to impress people. I think everybody is like that. Well, let me continue with the story. I'll get to that later. So at the restaurant, I actually did become friends with this one guy. He was like a hippie, kind of psychedelic using type of dude. He was the only one that I really clicked with. So I ended up moving in with him and thinking like, all right, so this dude's cool. Like, he's going to introduce me to all these people and this is finally it. And he did, and I met a lot of people, but I realized, like, even there, I mean, as I said, like, even there in that whole community, in that whole group, it just all still felt so fake to me. It felt like people were lacking authenticity. It felt like they were all trying to play a role. They were all trying to, it sounds like people are just reading from a script when they talk to each other, you know? And I think I always realized this, even when I was young, but I just never really like had the wisdom to really put it into perspective like I do now. So time goes on, and I realized that my whole desire to move to New York, to find myself I was essentially trying to find myself through other people. I was trying to, I guess, find authenticity by being around other people who I thought were maybe going to be authentic, or maybe were going to help mold me into that. But that's just not how it works, I realize now. You can't, the more that you're around other people who are inauthentic, it's gonna stop you from ever truly being yourself. And that's what this is really all about. It's like the only way that I ever truly became my authentic and genuine self is by now moving away from all that toxic New York City mess, which, by the way, was a huge mirage. I mean, there were some things I liked about it. There was a lot of growth there. I highly recommend everybody move to a big city at some point. But for the most part, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And now I'm much happier where I am now. As you can see, I am in a very more quiet place. And I live alone now. And I realized that for me to really be authentic, I had to fully accept myself for who I am and be comfortable just being me and being alone. So that's the problem. It's like I wasn't comfortable being me. I wasn't comfortable being alone. And I think I was trying to escape that by finding other people who I thought maybe I can only be myself around these certain people. But I realize now, the more that you can adapt to solitude, the more that you could become comfortable completely being yourself, especially when you're alone, that's going to be the key. Because if you're always, I mean, just look around, like everybody's always trying to impress others. They're always trying to act like a dancing clown to get into the right groups and this and that, and be friends with these people and impress these people. And it's I mean, it makes sense. It's kind of like this tribal mentality that we're still living in, because I guess it's like a survival mechanism. Like, we need to be in groups, we need other people, or we think. But I think once you evolve out of that and you can just be completely comfortable embracing yourself, whatever that may be. I can't be too specific in this video because it's going to look different for everybody. But I think just ask yourself, like how often, like, just notice your behaviors. Like, how often are you doing things just to maybe appease other people, or doing things that you don't even really care for or align with you, but you're just doing them because you think you're supposed to fit into this role or this mold. The other reason is why I struggled with this so much, is because I was so stuck in my head. I was always in the past or always in the future. And this is why when I really started to really get into deep meditation, like really got into meditating daily, that's when I really started to feel authentic. Because if you understand, like, you can only, like, I think inauthenticity is not truly being with the moment. It's when your mind is all over the place and you're trying to be somebody else because you're afraid that you're going to get rejected, or you're stuck in the past because you can't stop thinking about it. But when you could truly embrace the moment, and I think that's where the meditation really helped, that's what got me to be more authentic. I mean, you don't necessarily have to meditate, although I highly recommend it. When you can completely let go of outcomes, let go of what's going to happen in the future, that's when you start embracing your real authenticity. And this comes down to a lot of things. I mean, for many people, it's just, do you feel a lot of tension in your body when you're around others? Do you feel anxiety? Do you feel nervousness? Do you feel like you have to be a certain way, or do you have to perform a certain way to get people to like you? That's what you have to let go of. You have to let go of that tension in your body that causes that, because I always struggled with that a lot. Age has a lot to do with it. I think as you get older, you start becoming more authentic. You start caring a lot less about what other people think of you, and about trying to fit into certain groups and fit into people. I mean, my problem was I think I was just so desperate for friends. I was so desperate for people to like me that I would just do anything to get that to happen. And I was not being authentic. And I see it now too, even being as a content creator, like I still struggle with this of truly just being real on camera and, being worried about what people are going to think. And I really don't care that much anymore, or I'm getting a lot better at it. I mean, I'm sure everybody goes through sort of that learning curve with this. But yeah, I mean, I think as you get older, you start embracing this more. And that's why old, wise people don't really care what anybody thinks about them. They say whatever they want. They're comfortable with themselves, with their interests, with their passions, their hobbies, whatever. They just don't care. I think age has a lot to do with it. It's hard when you're in your 20s and your teens and you just want people, you want to be accepted. You want people to like you. You want to be in groups. I get it. But as you age, you'll see how insignificant that all is. And when I really did start embracing my own authenticity, when I started just going my own way, being comfortable being on my own, the right people sort of came into my life. And I find a lot of people report the same thing. I mean, it's kind of like, does anybody really want to be friends with somebody who's trying too hard or who you can clearly tell is disingenuous? People will gravitate towards people who truly are comfortable with who they are and don't give a fuck. That's the truth. It's the hard truth. And, the advice I would give is to just start noticing your actions on a daily basis. Notice the way you feel around other people. Are you able to be like the person you are when you're completely alone? Are you able to be that same person when you're around others? And obviously you need to follow social norms and things, so it can't be 100%. That's one thing I noticed. Like, I can be the same exact person, who I am when I'm completely by myself, who I am in these videos, who I am around others. It's all the same person. That's how you know you're embracing your authentic self, in my opinion. Just start shining awareness on your actions, your feelings, the way you talk to people, the way, do certain people, notice your shadow coming out. Do certain people make you act a certain way? Sometimes if people have similar personalities to your parents, you might try to act a certain way to appease them. Or if somebody has a similar, a very confident person, they might make you feel less than in some way. It's a learning curve and it's a long process, and it takes a lot of just really noticing your actions in the present moment. That's the most important part. You can only embrace your authenticity in this moment, because that's all there is. That's all that fucking exists. I know I say it all the time, but it's the truth. So yeah. So basically, I'm done with New York. I'll never go back there. It's horrible there now. It's disgusting. There's so much crime. It's ridiculously expensive. It's just a huge scam of a city, in my opinion. I enjoy peace and solitude at this point. That's what I value most. So thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it, and let me know what you think below.